is Phil Underwood, Engagement Manager here at the Society for the Environment, and I am delighted to welcome you to another special episode of our podcast focusing on the new Registered Environmental Practitioner Professional Registration, also known as REnvP. I am joined by three guests today: an employer of environmental professionals, a CEO of a leading professional body offering REnvP registration to their members, and the very first professional to achieve REnvP registration. Before we head into the podcast and speak to our guests, REnvP is a professional registration sitting directly between Registered Environmental Technician and Chartered Environmentalist. It is available to those who apply their environmental knowledge to their work at a practitioner standard, demonstrating a commitment to good practice. At the time of recording, you can apply to become an REnvP via membership of 7 professional bodies. They are the Society of Operations Engineers, or SOE, the Institute of Materials, Minerals and Mining, or IOM3, the Arboricultural Association, the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment, or IEMA, the Institute of Water, the Institution of Agricultural Engineers, or IAGRE, and the Institution of Environmental Sciences, or IES. For further details, visit socenv.org.uk, that's socenv.org.uk, and please do get in touch with us if we can assist in any way. I very much hope you enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Society for the Environment podcast, focusing specifically on the Registered Environmental Practitioner, or REnvP, professional registration. At the time of recording, REnvP was officially launched yesterday, so that was the 12th of January. Today I'm joined by 3 special guests, and that's Sarah Mukherjee, who is the CEO of IEMA, which is the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment. Rihanna Jarvis, who is the Corporate Partnerships Manager at Sustrans. And we have Simon Benfield, who is a Chartered Environmentalist and Director of Bridges at Ramboll. So a slightly different format to what you're normally used to on our podcast. But welcome to all of our guests. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, hi.
If it's okay, I'm going to go straight into some questions. Hi, Simon. Hi, Rihanna. Right, so if it's okay, I'm going to go straight into some questions. And I'm going to start off with Rihanna, simply because Rihanna is REnvP number 1. So she is the first environmental professional to gain the Registered Environmental Practitioner registration. So huge congratulations to Rihanna.
Thank you.
And if you're wondering how that works, as it was only launched yesterday, it is because we had a soft launch before the full launch yesterday. So that's how that happened. But congratulations anyway to Rihanna. So to start off with, if it's okay, could you provide a bit of an idea of essentially your professional background and how you came about becoming an REnvP?
Yeah, definitely. So after I left uni, I did some voluntary experience overseas, and then I worked for a charity that was based in the Philippines, doing kind of marine conservation based around whale sharks predominantly, and looking at kind of migratory patterns. And it was that really sparked my interest in wanting to get involved in the environmental sector. It's not the profession that I qualified in at university. I did nutrition. And then I joined the Institution of Environmental Sciences. So until the end of last year, that's where I was for 4 years. And so when I actually completed the REnvP, I was still working for the IES. So there I looked after events, conferences of all shapes and sizes, our professional registrations to an extent in terms of our workshops, and also some of our corporate partnerships, which we established last year. So I left the IES at the end of last year, and I joined Sustrans. So I'm one of those new people who is inducting online, who's not met their team in a very weird environment. But I've been there for about a week and a half now. So that's essentially a roundup of how I got here.
Wow. Well, congratulations on a new role.
Thank you.
And moving cities, I believe, during lockdown, which can't be the most straightforward.
Left London and I'm now in Bristol. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster, but it's been good fun.
I can imagine so. So why? So obviously, you applied for your RFP registration through the IES.
Yeah.
So why did you apply initially, and what does being an RFP mean to you?
So I think because I didn't have an environmental science background at university, it's not the degree that I took. I wanted to kind of recognise or get recognition for the work that I had done in the sector, the kind of knowledge that I'd gained and the experience that I've had to date. And working for the IES was a perfect opportunity. We held the licence to deliver the REnvP. And we also had a bit of a bespoke route as well. So I wanted to go through that and do a PRI, so an interview-only route. And it was just a really good opportunity to recognise the work that I've done, but a stepping stone to CM, which for me is still a couple of years away. And I think it really fills that gap for people who have left university a few years ago, but are still a little bit shy of CM. It gives you kind of that launch pad. And it's a really good opportunity to kind of reflect on where you've been, and kind of channel your focus as to where you want to get to, and if CM is the way to go or CSI is the way to go, how you can get there and what you need to do to kind of get to that point. Okay,
perfect. You mentioned there that there's a couple of routes for gaining your REnvP. Now, through the IES, there are two different options, aren't there? And as you've worked there, you know quite a lot about those two different routes, I imagine. Could you just explain the two different options there?
Yeah. So the idea was that we wanted to make REnvP really accessible to as many of our members as possible, and those who were becoming members and wanting to achieve the REnvP, and recognised that for some, an interview route only was really attractive, or just a report route was really attractive. And REnvP gives you that flexibility to do either. So that's what we set up. And for me, I was much more interested in the interview route rather than the report writing, and just really wanted to test that out, really. It was quite a new way for the IES to assess, and it was quite successful. So hopefully it will encourage more of our members to go that route as well.
Okay, absolutely successful. You are living proof of that now. Now, we're going to come back to Rihanna and her experiences of becoming REnvP and why she's done that. I'm going to go over to Sarah now, if that's okay. Now, Sarah keeps dropping out of internet connection, but hopefully we're going to be okay. And she does have a new puppy running around as well. So we're going to see how that mixes with the technology available. So first of all, Sarah, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, pleasure.
To start off with, if it's okay, could you provide a bit of an overview of who IEMA are for a start?
Yes, and interesting. Well, congratulations, Rihanna. And interestingly, she and I have had a very similar path. There's an apologies for the loss of picture every so often. I think we are all in the same position with everybody in lockdown, and certainly my son's at home trying to get his A-level work done. I think we're all in that position where it's all a little difficult and we're using quite finite resources. A bit of a metaphor for our professional lives as well, and how we're all trying to make a bit of a difference. So the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment is a membership organisation. We have more than 16,500 members across the world in more than 100 countries around the world, who are all working in environmental or sustainability jobs, or they have an interest in those areas, and they're working on a path. Well, they can be working on a path towards our fellowship status. So through member, practitioner, chartered, and in fact, REnvP dovetails very well with our practitioner level of membership. Or, as I said, they might just have an interest in environment and sustainability. I want to keep up with the latest legislation, to get to understand a little bit more about some of the basics behind what can be quite a technical area, or maybe just do some networking with like-minded individuals in their region or in their sector. So we cover pretty much every sector, which is great. It's quite unusual that you can get to meet people from very different sectors who are doing the same sort of job. We really do make sure that not only our our qualifications recognised, as I said, across the world, but also we provide the practical to support to go along with your professional journey. So we're starting a series of what we're calling IEMA How To, which will be a programme around how to talk to the media, how to present yourself, how to write a CV, that sort of thing.
Brilliant. So it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities there for an IEMA member. And I know that your influence spans beyond your membership with your policy work and so on as well. To provide a bit of context, as I mentioned at the very start of the podcast in the introduction, there are 7 professional bodies that you can apply for REnvP via at the moment, and IEMA are one of those. That's the very easy connection to how IEMA fit into this podcast. Now, as a leading organisation for environmental professionals, which you've just outlined, and you're playing a valuable role in supporting professionals who protect and enhance the environment, how does professional registration, such as REnvP and charterships, fit into that?
Well, it's a very interesting question, because I'm relatively new myself. As I said, I took over the organisation in June, in the middle of a lockdown, and so I'm rather like Rihanna. I haven't actually met most of the people who, of the organisation I'm running face to face, although I feel I know them very well from having virtual conversations. And the point of IEMA, when it originally started with a slightly different name and obviously much smaller, was to provide a professional framework around a fairly new profession, and a fairly new and emerging profession, to give the credibility that engineers and lawyers and accountants have through rigorous assessment, through challenging exams, through providing a workbook of your own demonstration of your professional accomplishments, and to give some sort of progression as well. And I think that's just as true now as it was when IEMA started, because there it is. And I think people are quite surprised, because they think, if you're not in the sector, you tend to think of environment and sustainability as a bit kind of, tree hugging and being out in a fleece and being in the countryside, or, maybe saving a tree or whatever. But in fact, as we know, it can be a fiendishly technical area, whichever bit of the sector you're in, whether it's finance or construction or food and farming. There's a lot of very, very specific and quite dense regulation that you've got to keep on top of. Of course, that's included. We now have Brexit, and so there will be very different ways even the 4 nations of the UK will be working. There's UN commitments, there's matching EU commitments now. We've got to make sure that we're following a similar path to the EU in terms of environmental regulation. So there's a lot to keep up with. And I think being part of a professional organisation such as IEMA, and as you said, we're delighted to be one of 7 organisations who are part of this new initiative, gives you the opportunity to keep up with that often, quite bewilderingly large amount of information that you need to take in and digest, and also be able to provide a strong narrative to your own organisation. And I look at the webinar program that we're doing. To be perfectly honest, I'm a law graduate. I was a journalist, and I've been involved in utilities and agriculture. Sometimes I don't even understand the title of the webinar. And they are really, they are really interesting and very, 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 very technical webinars for people who really want to keep on top of their game.
Okay. Yes, well, there's certainly a lot of different areas of expertise when it comes to environmental professionals, and Simon is probably quite a good example of that, really, given that you are director of bridges. Not much tree hugging involved in that, I don't think, but clearly lots of environmental opportunities when it comes to that kind of thing in all manner of different jobs and disciplines and sectors and so on. So if I come to you now, Simon, first of all, again, thank you very much for joining us today. Really, really happy to have you here. For a start, could you just give us a bit of background as to what Ramboll does and what you do in your role?
Yeah, so Ramboll is a multidisciplinary consultancy originating from Denmark. We're now about 16,500 people strong, spread across 35 countries, and we provide consultancy advice and design support across a very wide range of construction and infrastructure, but also policy and so on and so forth. So my particular role is in what I tend to term linear infrastructure, so large road and rail schemes. But it goes beyond just the bridges. So we will get involved in all aspects of creating new linear infrastructure. We have combined teams of engineers, but also ecologists, scientists, data scientists, economists. So we provide a full service to our clients, and those clients can be very varied, from small local authorities and individuals right through to governmental bodies, multi-governmental bodies like the EU, and also to banks, where we do a lot of environmental due diligence for them. My role is actually treading that very fine line that you have with something which doesn't necessarily come across as an environmentally supportive thing to do, putting linear infrastructure in. So, but of course, it's incredibly vital that these things are done for the economy and well-being. And so I see my role is helping to tread that fine line, to make sure that where we do have to make intrusions into the environment, that we do it in the most sensitive and with the most long-term approach. And that certainly very much so is the emphasis now, is around reducing emissions, reducing carbon that's going into our designs, and also developing solutions which go some way to addressing the climate emergency. So designs that are more resilient to the adverse climates we're seeing coming in, infrastructure that will support the changes that we're seeing in how we use energy. So it's absolutely fascinating role, and very varied, and I get a lot of opportunity to interact with many people across the various disciplines.
Well, it certainly does sound very varied. Multidisciplinary is possibly an understatement on that one, but a lot of consultancies and so on are like that. They have a lot of different disciplines in there, and like you said, there's environmental considerations to take into account on a lot of different projects. In fact, you could say environmental considerations are applicable on all projects, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. So
you've given some really good examples of points that I was actually hoping to put into the podcast somewhere of these projects of any form have environmental considerations, like I say, but then also the fact that you would possibly say that for yourself, would you say that you're an engineer first, and then obviously it's your core discipline, is the right way to put it, and then but you have a huge amount of environmental considerations that you use your expertise to put that into your projects?
Yes, very much. If I trace my roots back, were originally engineering. I started in the marine environment, actually, ports and harbours and things like that, and I've transitioned across. But obviously, it is a personal interest. The environment is a personal interest, and so I've been interested in it for a while. But it's now very much a thread that runs through everything we do as an organisation, and also I've So I'm a board member of the Society of the Environment as well, and I also take that message through to one of the other institutions, the Institution of Engineering Designers, where we're looking to adopt the Registered Environmental Practitioner as one of the grades we offer.
Okay, fantastic. So the message, well, a couple of messages there again. You do not have to be an ecologist or so on. You absolutely can be someone like an engineer who specialises in the environmental side of that and making those projects as green as they can be and that kind of thing. So the same goes, obviously, you're a chartered environmentalist, and that same principle applies to REnvPs as well.
Absolutely.
So sticking with Ramboll for now, how does the environment and environmental considerations fit into the work that Ramboll does? You've mentioned that it goes through a lot of what you do.
Yeah. So we have a specialist division, environmental health division in the UK, and we have water divisions elsewhere in the world, and so they undertake specific what you would call environmental work, and that can be everything from making sure that the ecology is handled properly on a small road construction, right the way through to where we're advising organisations like the European Union on how climate change is going to impact the European islands. Is one of the studies we're doing. We're working with the World Building Council to understand how the circular economy might operate in the building environment. We're part of a team advising Highways England on how to develop their strategies for low carbon vehicles going forward. So it's an incredibly varied piece that we do in the environmental space, and as I said, it's everything from setting strategy for multi-governmental organisations right down to the people who are going out into the field to survey the ecology, so the flora and the fauna that's going to be directly impacted by specific projects. So a tremendous spectrum of environmentally related roles.
Okay, and given we've mentioned how much of a multidisciplinary organisation you are, why is it beneficial that despite the differing specialities that staff at Ramboll have, they can all prove their environmental competence via registration, such as Chartered Environmentalist or REnvP? Why is that important for Ramboll?
Well, in professional registration has many benefits, both for the organisation, but also for the individual, be that in engineering or in product design, or legally, or in this instance environmentally. And the key things for me are, well, one, it's a developmental goal that we can introduce our staff to, so it gives them something to aim for, a target and a framework on which they can build their own development, because developing the individual is one of the key tenets for how we want to run our business. It provides a standard that we can measure against, so it's a proof of competency, which is very useful in how we, particularly in such a big organisation with so many varying expertise, it sets a benchmark that you can measure people against. And then the third key advantage to us from professional registration is it enables us to demonstrate to our clients the level of competency of the staff that we're going to bring to bear. So it's professional registration, I think, is absolutely vital to organisations like Ramboll, particularly in a multinational environment where I'd like to think that the UK's professional registration grades carry quite a lot of weight through into other jurisdictions, and it's a very good way of showing that we can work effectively wherever we go in the world.
Absolutely. Sarah, do you have any additions to add to that in any way? The benefits of registration for organisations, I guess, and beyond, really.
Yes, and well, I would absolutely support those comments. In fact, that and it's really nice to hear actually from someone who is senior in the sector agreeing with pretty much what we suspected as an institute ourselves. That it isn't just something to do. It actually is a proper qualification that is recognised in a very significant way by employers, and that's certainly what we get. A very strong feedback that we get from our. We have corporate partners, and we work very closely with some very big organisations like the Environment Agency within the UK, and of course outside. As I said, we've got members in more than 100 countries, and they really do see this as a way of showing your own desire to progress within the sector or progress within your organisation, that you're taking it seriously. I mean, often, and it's a lot of work. It's judged to a very high standard, and so it shows that you're prepared to go the extra mile, both within your organisation and also in your free time, to prepare some quite challenging and demanding things that are asked of you as part of the process. But it also gives you the opportunity to show a range of skills that sometimes it is difficult to demonstrate fully in a working environment, like your strategic management, like your planning, like your academic ability to be able to synthesize ideas and produce strong arguments as well. So I think there are. I mean, funnily enough, I've been doing a part-time MBA at my advanced stage, and I know all about having to work full-time and do a professional qualification, and I don't regret a single minute of it. And this is very much the very strong signal we get from our members as well, that any form of learning is always, there's always something you're going to learn that will be useful in your day job and will also make you think much more widely in a way that you would perhaps never have thought about before, about the skills that you have and the extra skills that you can bring to the party. And, at its most basic as well, it makes you much more marketable. That another well-respected, internationally respected qualification makes you all the more marketable in what can be quite a competitive marketplace.
Quite right, yes. Various elements of interest pointed out there. I mean, the continued learning element is a huge part of professional registration. In order to keep your registration, those letters after your name, you have to do continued professional development. Progression element you mentioned there is fundamental for one of the reasons that RFP was introduced, because of that opportunity to, you gain your RFP, you show that you're committed to your discipline, and there's the potential then to progress to chartership if you want to. You don't have to, but that's the progressionary route is there. Similarly, going from RF Tech, the technician level registration, to RFP, there's more of a ladder, I guess, as you might say, to progression there, which is very useful for what RFP is there for, but not solely. But I'm going to go back to Rihanna now, if that's okay. Let's hear a bit more about the experience of gaining the registration. How did you find the application process? And did you find it rewarding anyway, or was it entirely daunting? Or
a mix of the two, I think. What both Sarah and Simon have just picked up, though, I think it teaches you a really good exercise to reflect and recognise the achievements that you've made so far, but also kind of get used to using a framework for that assessment process. That, like you say, you don't have to go into chartership, but if you do, or you might find that the organisations that you work for, in terms of their appraisal style and things, there will be similarities there. But I think it's a difficult exercise, but it's a really good exercise to be good at reflecting critically on your achievements and what you've learned to date so far in your professional and kind of more voluntary experience as well, and just get used to that. And I think it shifts your focus as to where you've really gained some skills and where there's space for further development moving forward. So I did find it daunting. I also found it really enjoyable. And it was just a really good excuse to sit back, and it came at a really timely point for me as well, because I was leaving the IES. It was a really nice exercise to think about what I've done in the 4 years there, what I've gained and what I've learned, and what I didn't expect I would learn as well. But it also made me think outside the box. And I've done a lot of voluntary experience with charities in both the kind of marine sector and in the food sector. And it really made me think outside the box of where that experience fits. And I didn't use my experience of the IES to answer all of the questions and demonstrate all of the competencies. And I think that was a real strength, actually, that some of the feedback from my PRI said that. I guess that's a bit of a tip to those who are coming out of a university degree or kind of graduate level or in their first year of employment, to think, don't be intimidated to think that you're not qualified to do REnvP, because if you check with the body that you're doing it through, you probably will be. And it's just about looking at your degree and the experiences that you've had in that situation, the societies you've been part of, the lectures and things that you've kind of gone above and beyond to get involved in. All of that is really important experience, and it's valid in the REnvP. And I think that was one thing I just assumed I needed to use my most recent professional experience, when actually there was a wealth of experience that I could pick up that I had before joining the IES that was really relevant to the REnvP. So yeah, I think it was a good exercise. And I think, if anything, it's something that you should kind of continue maybe on an annual basis, and just kind of take that time to kind of stop and reflect and see where you're at.
Absolutely. You don't get that kind of opportunity very often.
Exactly, yeah.
So to be able to do that is really good. And like you say, at your stage, when you're just about to leave the IES, but that element of reflection of what you've done there, again, you don't always have the time to do that. So that must have been pretty useful for you, I imagine.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think moving into a new position as well, in a new organisation, it kind of helped me prepare and think about what actually I was bringing to that role. And because inevitably in my first couple of months here, I'm going to have to go through a similar objective kind of process of looking at where I want to be and what I want to achieve. And I think doing that REnvP application process at the end of the IES really showed me where I want to move my career forward. So yeah, I think I would recommend it to people. I think it's a good experience to go through.
Speaking of the different areas and disciplines that you could go into, which again we've mentioned it a few times now, is so broad. If I come back to Simon and Ramboll, who would you suggest that REnvP within Ramboll might be useful for? Give maybe thinking about their stage in their career, or maybe the different types of roles. I know you've already mentioned lots of different disciplines, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think our REnvP is there are two ways to look at it. So you could describe it, professional registration, as a series of ladders and landings, or stairs and landings. So it's either you're a stage on your further development. So if your ultimate aim is chartership and moving up into this, where you're leading, defining the journey for others, and REnvP is a stepping stone on that journey to one of the higher levels. So that's one area that you could consider adopting REnvP as your next goal. The other one is to do with an acknowledgement that not everybody in a business will be a leader. You need for a business to be successful, you need people, the doers. And one aspect of REnvP is very much, it's a recognition of the doer. It's it can, for some people, be the goal, and it's a recognition that they are excellent in that role of taking the vision that's from above and implementing it on a day-to-day basis and getting recognition for that. So I see it very much as having two roles within an organisation like Ramboll. It's one stage on a development to a leading role, but also it's a recognition for a job well done and a job that you continue to want to do over a longer period.
Absolutely.
If I may just jump in there and just support Simon's comment, because I think that's a really important point to remember, that with many of these, REnvP being one, that it's a celebration of the stage that you've got to, which may be the stage that you're very happy with, and then you don't always have to go to the next level or do the next thing. Is that it can be a really huge tick for, as Simon, I think that's a beautiful way of saying it, a job really well done that you take, understandably huge pride in.
Yeah,
quite right. Yes, yeah. And I'm going to come to Sarah again, if that's okay, and touch upon the importance of being able to prove competence, and registration allows you to do that as an environmental professional, and proving your competence within the environmental part of your work. How important is that for an individual or and an organisation? Might come to Simon for that one, and maybe the environment as a whole. Let's go big picture.
Yeah, it's a very again a very good question, and I think, as I said, increasingly organisations, certainly this is what our members are saying and our corporate partners are, that organisations are looking for actually quite a difficult to marry skill set, which REnvP is one of the qualifications that will begin to demonstrate that. So not only a high level of technical knowledge and a scientific mindset, the ability to gather data and make decisions as a result of that, but also that ability to turn that into a narrative. And it's something that actually a lot of our members have asked for, which is one of the reasons we're doing this How To series, that it's the marrying of the ability to work within a technical scientific framework, but also to be able to tell the story. And in fact, one of the things we have, funnily enough, is a storytelling workshop later in the year, because being able to produce an argument that will resonate with often, I speak as a humanities graduate, with the humanities graduates who are in other parts of the organisation, often in manager roles or in finance roles, is really important, and something that sometimes, because if you come from a scientific tradition, that's sometimes difficult to do, because you follow the data and it's very obvious to you as a scientist what you should be doing. Having to turn that into a story that is understood by other parts of the organisation is sometimes not that easy. And I think being able to show that you have a qualification that recognises your ability, as Rihanna said, to perform a strategic revision of your own competencies and career is really important in telling that story, that you can do not only the scientific bit, but you can do the narrative bit as well.
Absolutely. Simon, do you have anything to add to that, the importance of proving competence?
Yes, I agree with everything that Sarah was saying there. Another thing that it does is it gives a benchmark when you're interacting with other disciplines. Your engineers, your product designers, your scientists. there can be a tendency, particularly in the more senior ranks, which is probably more down to age than anything, that it's I don't want to really use it, but the tree hugger, the environmentalists are that has a certain historical thing attached to it, but by having clearly defined, professionally registered people who have gone through a transparent process equivalent to what you would see for engineering or for science, for product design, it gives a kudos and a weight to the voices. Not that in this current era they should need extra weight, given the seriousness of the climate emergency, but it all helps. So I think having that a professionally run and administered framework to support people is absolutely vital.
I guess the framework it allows that professionalism that you have through becoming a registrant through an organisation with a royal charter and so on. That allows you to have that, like you say, the equal kind of conversations with those who are chartered engineers maybe or so on, which are potentially more established in terms of the the registrations, but equally as reputable is possibly the right word, and hopefully that allows environmental professionals to increase their influence in a time which environmental influence is probably quite necessary, given the challenges we currently have. But that is a whole other podcast in itself, plus many more. So we're coming close to our time finishing, but I do have a few more questions to run through. First of all, I'm going to go back to Rihanna to see if she has any additional top tips for aspiring REnvPs. I know you've given a few already, but anything else you want to put in there?
I think speak to those people around you. If you're in doubt as to whether you think you qualify, speak to people who not necessarily more senior than you, but your colleagues, your wider team, managers, friends, things like that. I think people see you in a different light in the way that they interact with you, and they will definitely be able to share some sort of insight into skills you've got or bits of experience you've not thought about, or areas of your development that would really help you qualify and kind of give you that confidence to complete it. So I think, don't be daunted by kind of the rigor that's involved in achieving REnvP. It is of a high standard, but it is accessible as well. So I think it's kind of finding that balance and having the confidence to go for it. And you'll need to be a member of the professional body that you go through. So speak to the professional body, get some advice, some guidance. They are experts in that field as well as SOCEM as well. And just kind of think outside the box where you can. Like I said earlier, don't just think about that most recent piece of professional experience that you've gained or that most recent project that you've been involved with. Really think about other things that you've done that have kind of enriched your experience and who you are and how you've got to where you are. And kind of think outside the box. Some voluntary bits of experience that you don't think demonstrate very much may actually be the perfect way to demonstrate a competency. So I think that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Now, I know that Sarah has got to dash fairly promptly. So I've got a question, or two questions actually, for all of you, if that's okay. So I'm going to start with Sarah. And if you need to disappear before we finish, that's absolutely fine. Not a problem at all. So the question is, why did you choose to work in a role that has an environmental focus, or lead an organisation that has an environmental focus?
Now you sound just like the board when I had my final interview, because that was one of the questions. And the answer is, very much what my colleagues on the podcast have said. This is the most important thing that's happening. We are in a climate emergency. We are in a biodiversity emergency. And the next 20 years are going to be absolutely crucial to whether we have a future as as humanity, and certainly a future in the way that we would wish our children and grandchildren to have a future. And when you think about it like that, who wouldn't want to be involved in something where you can begin to tangibly make a difference? That and I'm so grateful and blessed to have this job, because I work with people who want to make that difference for our members, but also with our members who are walking that talk every day, and really changing. There's some of the things that they're working on in terms of aviation, food and farming, transport, construction, the differences that are being made in terms of the route to zero carbon is truly humbling, and it is a truly wonderful experience to hear their stories and hear and see their professional development.
Absolutely. And that's something I've experienced coming into the Society for the Environment as a non-environmental professional. The amount of work going on is inspiring, but there are still so much more to do, and we're looking forward to seeing what that is. My last question, if that's okay, Sarah, is if you were in a position where you could influence world leaders for a day, what would be the one thing that you would do or say to them?
I would. I was a journalist for 20 years with the BBC and environment correspondent, so was privileged enough to spend a lot of time with world leaders. And we all think that this is the most important thing, and of course it is. But if you are a world leader, you have 90 or 100 people all telling you that this is the most important thing, and you can see why they think it is. And so inevitably you get, in some cases, a short-termism that governments change, administrations change, world leaders change, and there's an inconsistency. And so the one thing I would say is they all talk a lot about it, but we really do need a consistent, globalized plan. And I know that's what the COPs are all about, and they're supposed to be about, but we really do need one to give people certainty to invest, certainty to develop, and certainty to make the right business decisions to go towards a zero carbon future. And we really do need that global agreement that this is the point of no return. So this is the point we have to work towards, wherever that is. I'm a great believer in the ingenuity and innovation that mankind can bring to this particular issue. We've seen this with a vaccine, that actually when the world's scientists are concentrating on a single problem, we can move with unimaginable speed. But we do need to be able to have the framework and the agreement, regardless of where you are in the countries or regardless of where you are in the world, to move towards that certainty. And that's what I would say. I'd say, please, a consistent framework that really does what it says.
Now, that is a message we can probably all support. Now, Simon and Rihanna, you've now had a few more moments to consider your answers to this. However, that's quite a standard of response to live up to from Sarah there. So I'm going to leave the last word to Rihanna as our first registered environmental practitioner. So I'm going to go to Simon next, if that's okay. The same questions, really. Why did you choose to go into a role that allows you to use your environmental expertise?
Because it needed to be done. So I've been involved in it. I was interested in engineering as a child. And in many ways, I'm doing the job I always wanted to do. But it became very clear to me fairly early on in my career, that we have to make sensible choices about how we do these things, and it's about challenging the status quo, and that's what my role allows me to do, is to challenge the status quo. And it's, yes, okay, you do have to put a piece of linear infrastructure there. As Sarah says, world leaders have lots of different and even local leaders, they have lots of different things pulling at their priorities. But you can always do things in a better way, and that's why I've chosen to focus on some of the environmental aspects. It's helping my colleagues and my clients and the people I collaborate with to do things in a better way.
Okay, and lastly, now Sarah does have to leave, so thank you very much for joining us today, Sarah. Thank you very much for your insights.
It's been brilliant. Thank you. Real pleasure. Thank you.
Catch up
Bye-bye.
very soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Now, Simon, the last question for you is the world leader question. And the reason I'm asking this is because we ask it to every single podcast guest that we have. So if you're able to influence world leaders, what would be the one thing you would focus on?
I think I would just ask them to do what they've said they'll do. Actually, to not, Sarah said this as well. It's to put some actual actions in place. We've stopped talking. We need to stop talking. We know what the problem is. I would just implore the world leaders to put in place positive, firm, long-term actions to address these problems.
And that would be environmental problems, I assume you refer to.
Oh, environmental problems
Yes.
at first, yes, and then there's a number of others that they can work on. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, clearly we're going to focus on environmental things here, but there are many things that world leaders could do elsewhere as well, obviously. But the environment has lots of challenges at the moment, it's fair to say. So, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Simon.
Pleasure.
And Rihanna, you've had loads of time now. No pressure. But in terms of your career choice and the fact that you want to focus on the environment potentially as part of your career, maybe, or a focus, why did you decide to go down that route?
Because of the opportunity that is out there. There is so much work that is happening now, and Sarah touched on how tangible your work is, and I think that is quite energizing to see the work that you do actually have a direct impact in various different ways, in policy, in society, in the economy. To really see the work that you're doing have an impact and know that there's so much more to be done and so much opportunity. I think we need to protect our planet. Like I love being outdoors. I love enjoying our natural environment. And it would be really, really sad to see that go on a local level all the way up to a global level. And I think, the opportunity that's out there, the way that you can diversify your career and the people that you'll meet is inspiring. So it wasn't really a question for me. It was definitely a direction I wanted to go in.
It sounds like you're very much drawn into it from your passionate stance on the environment and that kind of thing. I suppose it seemed like the perfect fit for what you're aiming for, from what you want to do, I suppose.
Definitely, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm a keen diver, and seeing destroyed reefs and things like that, if that doesn't get you going and doesn't make you kind of focus on the work that you're trying to do, then maybe you're in the wrong profession. Quite
right. And me and Rihanna have worked very closely over the last few years, and I haven't once quizzed you about whale sharks, so that's something I'm possibly going to do within the next week or so. Now, the last question is the world leaders question. What would you focus your influencing on for world leaders?
That time is now. I think there are only so many times you can pass the responsibility of the environment down to the next generation or to the next political leader. And I think we've done that enough now. The science is telling us, the evidence is showing us. And we as individuals, as citizens around the world, are starting to really see the effects ourselves on our own doorsteps of the environment changing and deteriorating and the climate changing. And I think it really has to be the urgent focus for political leaders to align to make sure that now is the time that we address it. Because if it goes on for too many more generations being passed down, there won't be the opportunity. We'll go past that tipping point where we don't have the influence that we could have now. So I think time is of the essence, and it has to be done today.
Okay, strong messages all around, which I don't think is entirely surprising at all, given the severity of the challenges that we face. But in terms of the podcast, we have reached conclusion. So Thank you very, very much for your insights today. Thank you to Rihanna, to Simon, and to Sarah. It's been really interesting speaking to 3 different people from 3 different perspectives, really. Simon is he works for a large consultancy. You know, you're a chartered environmentalist. You've gone through the process of professional registration. Rihanna has just become an REnvP and has now very recently moved jobs to Sustrans. And Sarah is the CEO of a leading environmental membership organization doing lots of good things. So the different perspectives have been fantastic. So thank you very much again. And we shall see everyone else in the next podcast. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Society for the Environment podcast. If you're curious to hear more about the REnvP, CEnv or REnvTip registers, please take a look at our recorded registration guidance webinars on our website at socenv.org.uk/webinars. Or you can visit our YouTube channel, Society for the Environment, where they are available alongside a variety of topical webinar series and also a variety of REnvP specific insights, such as why you'd like to become an REnvP, how you do it, and so on. Whilst there, remember to like the videos and subscribe to the channel. Always helps. To keep updated with our latest news, you can sign up to receive emails from us, including our bi-monthly e-newsletter via socenv.org.uk/newsletter. You can also follow us on Twitter, and our account is at socenv_HQ, and on LinkedIn. And we are there as Society for the Environment with SocEnv in the brackets. Following a break since the summer, our podcast is back very soon with more fascinating interviews with environmental professionals. If you're interested to hear more future podcasts from us, please subscribe to hear more from us. You can subscribe and review through most podcast platforms. To name a few, they are Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher. The choice is absolutely yours. Until next time, goodbye and stay safe.